A man steps out of an old Toyota, wrinkled shirt, a baseball cap pulled low, and a tired look on his face. No one knows. He owns the entire dealership right in front of him. They call him Rick, the construction worker looking for a new ride. But behind that quiet gaze is Ethan Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Auto and Fleet. On a mission to investigate his own company. Lately, the red flags have been piling up. Hidden fees, forced protection packages, poor customers treated like garbage. He couldn't sit back any longer, so Ethan made a choice, step directly into the lion's den. But what he's about to uncover isn't just a few bad apples. It's a web of corruption woven into contracts, crushing the dreams of working-class fathers just trying to buy a car to send their kids to college. And when the scammer laughs in his face, he has no idea. He just baited a trap for the very man who signs his paycheck. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to update our latest videos. A battered 2003 Toyota Corolla slowly rolled into the parking lot of Carter Auto and Fleet, looking like it didn't belong among the gleaming rows of Ford F-15s, Rams, and Chevy Silverados, lined up like an army ready for battle. Ethan Carter sat behind the wheel, fingers drumming lightly on the steering wheel. His reflection stared back at him in the windshield, patchy stubble after 3 days without shaving, a faded flannel shirt wrinkled at every seam, a baseball cap pulled low over weary eyes, and a scratched plastic watch that looked like it came from a corner pharmacy. Nothing about him hinted he was the CEO of the largest truck dealership chain in Washington state. It had been nearly 6 months since Ethan had last stepped foot inside this flagship location. He'd been busy expanding new branches, trusting this one to Travis Monroe, once considered his top-performing manager. But lately, customer reviews had started haunting his nights. Hidden fees. Promised one thing, the paperwork said another. Felt pressured into buying. Ethan knew he couldn't rely on internal reports anymore. He needed to see it with his own eyes. He took a deep breath, stepping fully into the role of Rick Dawson, a construction worker who'd scraped together $35,000 after 3 years of overtime, now looking for a sturdy truck to haul his gear. His walk was slower, slightly hunched, a far cry from his usual confident stride. The showroom doors slid open with a hiss, welcoming him with a blast of crisp air conditioning. On the polished tile floor, a young man with slicked-back hair, a pressed shirt tucked in just right, and a bright white smile hurried over. "Welcome to Carter Auto and Fleet. I'm Zach. What can I help you find today, sir?" Ethan smiled, adjusting his voice to a higher, rougher tone with a touch of small-town grit. "Hey there, son. Name's Rick. Work in construction. My old truck's on its last leg. Time to get me something that can handle real work." Zach beamed. "Well, you've come to the right place, Rick. We've got the toughest trucks in the state, perfect for guys like you. What kind of budget we talking?" "About 35 grand, Ethan replied, tapping the front pocket of his shirt, where a fake check and a prepped bank loan folder waited, just to sell the illusion. Zach nodded, guiding Ethan down the rows of trucks, but from the moment they made eye contact, Ethan could tell Zach wasn't just trying to sell him a truck. He was calculating a move. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. The undercover test had officially begun. Zach strode briskly through the lot, his hand casually resting on the side mirror of a gleaming Ford F-150 Platinum, smiling like he'd just landed the fattest catch of the day. "This one just came in yesterday, Rick," he said proudly, giving the hood a light pat like he was touching a prized trophy. EcoBoost engine, tows over 13,000 pounds. Perfect for a real work guy like yourself. Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning the spec sheet taped to the window. MSRP, $36,995. Just slightly over the stated budget, The classic push it just enough bait to stretch a customer's expectations. Looks great, Ethan replied, hiding a knowing smirk. Though, seems a bit out of my budget, huh? Don't worry about that, Zach jumped in, eyes gleaming. We've got super flexible financing options, and this one comes with our premium Carter Care protection package. 5-year full coverage, free roadside assistance, total peace of mind, already included in the price. Ethan furrowed his brow, playing the confused buyer just enough. Already included? You mean, even if I don't want it, I'm still paying for it? Zach smiled sweetly, a little too sweet. Well, practically every customer takes it anyway. I'm just saving you the trouble of deciding, you know? Ethan didn't reply, but in his mind he made a note. First bait detected, the mandatory upsell disguised as a standard feature. Zach led him toward the showroom desks. As they walked, Ethan's eyes drifted toward the glass-walled office labeled Travis Monroe, branch manager. Inside, Travis lounged in a leather chair, legs kicked up on the desk, casually chewing gum. His expensive glasses caught the light as he glanced up, locking eyes with Ethan for a moment before turning to whisper something to another employee nearby. The two burst out laughing. Even as Rick Dawson, Ethan could feel it. Something was rotten in the air. A toxic workplace culture masked behind polite smiles where manipulation was a skill and rewarded as one. At the desk, Zach fired up his computer, fingers tapping rhythmically on the keyboard. Trucks listed at $36,995, he said flatly. Add the Carter Care package at $2,100, document processing fee, $995, and market adjustment fee, $1,500. Hold up, Ethan interrupted. Market adjustment? What's that supposed to mean? Zach paused for a second, then smiled again. Ah, you probably haven't heard of that one. Supply's low right now, market's hot, so we've got to make some price tweaks. But hey, I promise you, still a killer deal. Ethan nodded slowly, his eyes cooled. Manufactured fees, second bait dropped, and this time it reeks of fraud. Zach scrolled quickly through the fields on his screen like a chef preparing a fraudulent dish. His tone was smooth, punctuated with phrases like comprehensive protection, exclusive offers, and internal policy. Ethan, under the name Rick Dawson, nodded absently, though his eyes scanned the showroom like a hawk. He was listening to everything. Then, a voice cut through the air from the next desk, tired, angry, desperate. That's not right. He said $29,500 all in. Now you want me to sign $32,800? Ethan turned his head slightly, his expression calm, but his ears sharpened. A Latino man, mid-40s, wearing a construction company uniform, stood clutching a stack of papers with trembling hands. Across from him, a salesman, Brett, slicked back hair, oxblood tie, and a smile that reeked of deception, even under cologne. Sir, Brett said, oozing fake sweetness, that price was before market adjustment, required protection packages, and value recalibration requested by upper management. I don't control those. The man clenched the paperwork tighter. My name is Luis Ramirez. I'm a customer, not a number. I've spent all year saving to buy this truck for my masonry work. Are you people just going to rob me? That's when Travis Monroe, the branch manager, stepped out of the glass office. His smile was perfect, but his eyes were ice. What's all the noise out here? He asked, tone patronizing, like scolding a schoolchild. Brett stepped back, subtly motioning for Travis to handle it. Luis tried to keep calm. I don't agree to these fees. I want to speak to the real manager. You're speaking to him, Travis said, adjusting the Rolex on his wrist. And if you won't proceed, we'll have to cancel the transaction. Of course, your $3,000 deposit is non-refundable since you signed the adjustment approval clause right here. He tapped a faint line of text buried at the bottom of the contract, the kind you'd need a magnifying glass to even notice. Luis looked down, then up. His face crumpled in fury and humiliation. "You tricked me." Ethan felt the blood rush to his ears. Memories flooded in, of his own father getting conned in the exact same way, losing his truck, his job, and nearly his dignity. That was why Ethan had built Carter's trucks in the first place, so no one else would suffer what his father did. "Shall we continue, Mr. Rick?" Zach whispered quietly. But Ethan wasn't listening anymore. Luis's hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage. A photo slipped from his shirt pocket. A young girl, birthday cake, missing front tooth, eyes beaming. Ethan stared at it, then looked at Travis, and he made a decision. This wouldn't just be a covert investigation, this would be a reckoning. Luis Ramirez clenched the file folder in his hands, his red-rimmed eyes locked on Travis Monroe, the man in a sleek designer suit and a smile as cold as steel. "Mr. Travis, please, you told me the truck was $29,500. Now the contract says $32,800. I don't have that kind of money. I told you from the beginning, I need to save what's left for my daughter's college tuition." Luis's voice trembled, but he still clung to politeness. He was a delivery driver working 2 jobs to support his daughter, who had just earned a partial scholarship to Washington State University. His old truck's front axle had failed. He couldn't wait any longer. Travis chuckled softly, leaned back in his chair, and propped one leg over the other. "Mr. Ramirez, I understand your situation, but this is standard procedure. Service fees, mandatory warranty, customer support bundle, financial processing charge, it's all clearly outlined in the contract. You're welcome to read it again." Luis's hands shook as he flipped through the contract. The fine print was barely legible. He had trusted the salesman, Josh, who'd promised verbally that the total would never exceed $30,000. "Josh promised me," he said there were no hidden fees. "Josh doesn't work here anymore," Travis cut in sharply, voice like a blade. "And let me remind you, what's on paper is what matters legally, not what was said." Across the room, Rick Dawson, Ethan Carter in disguise, sat at a nearby desk, pretending to review documents, but catching every word. From his angle, he noticed a small photo fall from Luis's folder. A teenage girl in a high school graduation gown, hugging her father, smiling ear to ear. That face, it looked just like Ethan's younger sister once did, before their family was conned into buying a junk truck and losing every penny of their savings. Luis's voice dropped to a plea. "If I don't get this truck, I'll lose my job. If I lose my job, my daughter won't be able to go to school." Travis stood, circled the desk, and placed a hand on Luis's shoulder, a gesture that looked like comfort but carried the weight of cruelty. "You have 2 options, Mr. Ramirez. Come up with the difference within 3 days, or cancel the deal and forfeit your $3,000 deposit. It's all there in the cancellation clause." Luis collapsed into the chair, body sagging under the weight of despair. Rick had to clench his fists under the table to keep his expression neutral. Every word Travis spoke, every move he made to back a desperate man into a corner, Ethan recorded it all, using the disguised audio recorder hidden in his wristwatch. He knew he had seen enough to act. But a larger question loomed in his mind. Was Travis Monroe just the surface? Who else was behind this carefully orchestrated scam? Luis Ramirez gripped the contract tightly in both hands. His voice shook but remained firm. "I only have the amount we agreed on. You said $29,500. Now you want another $3,000? I could lose my job without this truck. I'm doing this for my daughter. She's about to start college." Travis Monroe stood across from him, hands in his pockets, face utterly unmoved by the desperation in front of him. He stepped closer, leaned in and dropped his voice to a tone cold enough to cut steel. "I don't know where you think you're doing business, but this is Carter Auto and Fleet, not some flea market. You don't pay in full, you lose your deposit. Clear?" Luis opened his mouth to protest, but Travis snatched the contract from his hands and slammed it onto the desk like a final verdict. An office assistant glanced over but quickly looked away, clearly used to this kind of scene. "I never thought I'd be treated like this," Luis said quietly. "All I wanted was fairness." Travis let out a soft, mocking laugh. "Fairness? If you want fairness, try suing the education system. Here, it's pay or walk. That's the reality." No one in the room spoke, no one dared, but from a nearby desk, Ethan Carter, still disguised as Rick Dawson, was recording everything, using the hidden phone tucked in the chest pocket of his worn flannel shirt. He didn't take his eyes off Travis's face, cold, calculated, merciless. Every word of intimidation was a blade slashing through the very values Ethan had built his company upon. This was no longer just about hidden fees. This was a deliberate system of abuse, masked by contracts and corporate jargon. Luis lowered his head in silence, fists trembling. The image was painfully clear, a father cornered, trapped between his dignity and his daughter's future. Ethan tightened the strap of his old backpack. He had seen enough, but it still wasn't time to act. Not yet. The air inside the Carter Auto and Fleet showroom grew heavier after the blatant exploitation Travis had just unleashed on Luis Ramirez. Rick Dawson, Ethan Carter in disguise, remained seated at the desk with Zach Miller, the young sales associate handling his pretend truck purchase. Zach's face had gone pale, eyes darting toward Travis's glass-walled office, now shut like a barrier between power and decency. Ethan leaned forward and lowered his voice as he closed the folder. "You heard that, didn't you? He's really not going to refund the guy a dime." Zach swallowed hard. After a long pause, he bowed his head and whispered, "I still can't believe he's getting away with this. No matter how many people complain, Travis always walks. Because the boss, the owner never shows up." Ethan hid a smirk behind his mask of surprised curiosity. He nodded like a skeptical outsider. "I thought this was a trustworthy dealership. I've seen a lot of good reviews out there." Zach sighed, his voice trembling with frustration and shame. "It used to be, before Travis Monroe got promoted. Now it's a whole different place. We bait customers with an easy number, then when they sit down to sign, boom. All the hidden charges hit: market adjustment fee, premium service bundles, extended warranties, even ridiculous stuff like express document handling fees." Ethan furrowed his brow, leaned in closer. "And what happens if a rep refuses to go along with it?" Zach gave a bitter laugh. "Ask Chris Nguyen. He was one of the last guys to speak up, called Travis out for abuse of power. A week later, fired, underperformance, they said. He was Salesman of the Year last year." The name Chris hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He remembered it clearly. He'd personally signed Chris's bonus for ranking top 3 in sales across the entire company. And now Ethan understood why Chris had vanished. Zach lowered his voice again, this time almost pleading. "I don't want to be part of this system. But if I don't play the game, they stick me on dead shifts, Sundays, 8 a.m. to noon. Nobody comes in, no sales, no bonus." Ethan looked him in the eyes. Beneath the youth, beneath the nervousness, there was still a conscience fighting to breathe. "If someone actually listened, would you be willing to speak up?" Zach froze for a second, then slowly, silently, he nodded. Ethan reached over and gave his hand a subtle squeeze. "Don't worry, that chance is coming. Sooner than you think." "I need to use the restroom." Rick Dawson, Ethan Carter in disguise, stood up from Zach Miller's desk, casually grabbing his cup of water and slowly making his way toward the customer lounge. But the restroom wasn't his destination. He was stepping deeper into the heart of corruption, a place he, the founder of Carter Auto and Fleet, had never imagined could rot this badly. As he passed the finance department, Ethan froze when he overheard a hushed conversation between two young employees seated closely together. "Did that guy sign yet?" "Yeah," cried with joy over a $2,000 discount. "Has no clue we just tacked on $4,000 for the internal transfer fee." Haha, Travis calls that a double squeeze. Guy folded like paper. Ethan turned away, fists clenched. It wasn't just Travis anymore. The rot had spread, a whole network of staff now treating customers' ignorance as a buffet to be exploited. At the customer lounge, an elderly man sat beside his wife, frail hands trembling as he held a pricing sheet. Ethan took a seat one chair away and nodded politely. The man glanced over and sighed. "They told me the sticker price included all the promos. But then in the finance room, boom, there's this thing called a climate region adjustment fee. $1,200. His wife quietly cleaned her glasses. "We don't know who to believe anymore. Mr. Travis said it was a state-mandated fee. But I called my niece's law firm. She says there's no such thing in Washington." Ethan bit his lip. Scamming senior citizens using fake state regulations. That wasn't greed anymore. That was cruelty. As he left the lounge, Ethan ran straight into Travis Monroe, who stood in the middle of the showroom like a king surveying his domain. Travis was giving a pep talk to 3 new hires. Lesson 1, customers don't know what they need. We guide them, we don't explain. You want to make money? Know when to press. Know when to make them feel like they're winning. One trainee hesitantly asked, "But what if they ask for detailed breakdowns?" Travis chuckled, ice in his voice. "Send them to finance. Let them deal with it. After 30 minutes of line items and jargon, everyone signs." From the staircase above, Ethan watched through the glass railing. He didn't need to record it. The scene itself was a living indictment. Back at Zach's desk, Ethan sat down and calmly said, "I think I need to speak to Mr. Travis directly." Zach's eyes widened. "You sure? If you push back like Ramirez did, Travis will crush you." Ethan gave a thin smile. "I'm not here to push back. I just want to clarify a few things. One time only." Inside Ethan, the plan was almost complete, and the biggest predator in the room was about to walk straight into the trap. Zach Miller couldn't hide the worry on his face as he led Rick Dawson, Ethan Carter in disguise, toward Travis Monroe's office. "Just don't go head-to-head with him, okay?" Zach muttered. "If you piss him off, your deal won't go through, and I'll—" Ethan placed a hand on the young man's shoulder and gave it a gentle squeeze. "I just want to talk." The door opened. Travis's office looked exactly as Ethan remembered. Spacious, cold, with a glossy mahogany desk, photos of exotic cars, and a glass wall overlooking the entire showroom, as if he were the ruler of his own little kingdom of deceit. Travis looked up and smirked. "Mr. Dawson, is it? Zach said you had some questions about the fees?" "Not questions." Ethan sat down, deliberately setting his cap on the table to reveal a bit of graying hair. "Just wondering. If I don't want the comprehensive protection package or the premium service fees, then what?" Travis raised an eyebrow and then smiled, a filthy grin that reeked of cash and backroom deals. "You're the type who gets it. I like that." He stood up, walked behind Ethan's chair, and leaned down as if to share a secret. "Truth is, everything's negotiable. That package, mandatory, for regular folks. But for someone like you, if you're flexible, I can be flexible too." "Flexible how?" Ethan played dumb. Travis chuckled. "You give me $2,000 cash, no paperwork, no questions, and I'll give you the truck at sticker price. No add-ons, no fluff. In return, I'll magically remove all the extras from the paperwork. You feel me? Ethan leaned back as if considering it, though inside his blood was boiling. A bribe, director, shameless. And if I don't? He asked evenly. Travis shrugged. Then unfortunately, the protection plan and market adjustment fee are company policy. No way around it. Ethan clenched his jaw, forcing down the fury rising inside. And what do you get out of this? Travis grinned. I get to see a guy like you not get played like some desperate delivery driver. You're smart, you know the game. Play it right, you win. Play dumb, you pay. Beneath the table, Ethan's hand tightened into a fist. The recorder in his shirt pocket captured every slimy word. And what would Mr. Carter think of this deal? Ethan asked, his tone soft as silk. Travis burst into laughter, shaking his head. That old man. He's swimming in cash, couldn't care less what happens here. I run this place. Then, leaning in closer, Travis whispered near Ethan's ear, Trust me, if Carter knew, he'd thank me. Record-breaking profits this quarter. He doesn't know. And he never will. Ethan stood. I think I've heard enough. Travis frowned, confused. Wait, you're not taking the deal? Ethan turned back, a cold smile on his lips. Oh, I like deals, just not the kind you're about to lose your entire career over. A storm was coming to Carter Auto and Fleet, and Travis Monroe, the self-proclaimed king, had no idea his throne was already crumbling beneath him. Ethan left Travis Monroe's office, but he didn't leave the dealership. He walked slowly toward the main showroom, his expression calm, but every step was calculated, like a man planting charges beneath the foundation. Inside his shirt pocket, the recorder was still running. Travis's voice echoed clearly. Give me $2,000 cash. I'll wipe the extras off the contract. Ethan stopped the recording and saved the file under 3 separate names. One copy went to his secure cloud storage, another sent to his private email, and the last straight to the Carter Auto and Fleet head of legal affairs, with a short note. Prepare a full company-wide meeting, effective immediately. Back in the main hall, Ethan pretended to be on the phone while watching Travis through the glass office wall. There he was, lounging in his chair, legs crossed, smirking like he'd just bagged the easiest prey of the day. Unaware that he'd just swallowed a barbed hook, deep and irretrievable. Meanwhile, in the finance office, Zach Miller approached to submit a customer file, still shaken by what he had overheard. He glanced at Ethan from across the room. Ethan nodded once, silently signaling, "Be ready." 10 minutes later, internal coordination office. Ethan entered the evening managers' meeting, where Travis was wrapping up the day with several team leads. The fluorescent lights reflected off the polished glass table like surgical blades, and Ethan had brought the final scalpel. Apologies for the interruption, Travis, Ethan said, his voice now stripped of disguise, firm, cold, and unmistakably authoritative. But tonight's meeting will have a special agenda. Travis frowned. You're still here, Rick? Ethan slowly removed his baseball cap. Under the bright lights, the familiar salt and pepper hair and the face seen in financial magazines and the company's wall of legacy emerged in full view. The room froze. Travis stared in horror. No, it can't be. Ethan didn't smile. He pulled out his phone and tapped the speaker button. Let me remind you in your own words. Travis's voice played aloud. Old man Carter's just sitting on piles of money. He's clueless. Give me $2,000 cash and I'll clean the fees off the contract. All eyes turned to Travis. A few managers' jaws dropped. One instinctively pulled out his phone and started recording. Not a single soul came to Travis's defense. Ethan closed the phone, locking eyes with him. I know exactly what you've been doing. I know how many hard-working people you've squeezed for a few extra grand in your pocket, and I know you thought I'd never come back. He took a step forward, voice dropping to a razor's edge. "You were wrong, Travis. Dead wrong." The company-wide intercom chimed. Ethan tapped his tablet. "All showroom staff, report to the central floor. Emergency assembly." Travis took a half step toward the door, but a uniformed security guard was already waiting there. Ethan turned, his tone now icy and final. "Where are you going? Tonight's going to be long. But I promise you, it'll be worth every damn penny." The trap had snapped shut, and the wolf at the top of the food chain never saw it coming. The main hall of Carter Auto and Fleet no longer felt like a showroom. Tonight it had become a courtroom, and every employee was a witness. Nearly 30 staff members, sales, finance, and technicians stood in a circle around the front reception. Some whispered nervously. Others glanced sideways at Travis Monroe, now frozen next to security, his face pale as if he'd been stripped bare in the middle of a crowd. At the center stood Ethan Carter, no longer Rick Dawson, but the CEO in full. His eyes were sharp, his voice sharper. He held up his phone. A single tap. Old man Carter's always off expanding new branches. He doesn't even see the cash flowing in from the invisible fees I invented. Play it smart, and everyone thinks it's company policy. If any staff complain, I ship them off to the Sunday morning shifts. A chilling silence fell over the room. Zach Miller stood nearby, fists clenched, jaw trembling. A few staff exchanged glances, shocked but not surprised. They'd smelled rot for a long time. They just never dared say it aloud. Ethan lowered the phone. His voice was steel. "I'm Ethan Carter, and what you just heard is a betrayal of everything I've spent 15 years building." He turned toward Travis, voice low and lethal. "You thought I didn't know? That I was old, retired, and too far removed to care?" Travis swallowed hard, voice cracking. I was just optimizing profit, helping the company. I..." Ethan raised a hand. "Enough." "Helping who exactly? Luis Ramirez? The man who begged you to let him keep his deposit so he could pay his daughter's college tuition?" The room turned as the entrance door opened. Luis stepped in, still holding his file of documents. His eyes widened at the sight of Ethan and froze when he saw Travis surrounded, exposed. Ethan called out, strong and clear, "Mr. Ramirez, you will receive your full deposit back, and more." Luis blinked, voice barely above a whisper. I thought it was gone." Ethan placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "You lost nothing. But today, someone else is losing everything." He turned back to the staff. "Effective immediately, every contract from the past 6 months will be audited. Every customer wrongly charged will be refunded. And if any of you were ever pressured to cut corners or lie to a client, now is the time to speak." A tense pause. Then Zach Miller stepped forward. His voice was clear, steady. "I'll speak. I'm done being complicit." Then a technician joined, then a finance assistant. Like dominoes falling, those who once stayed silent now stood up. Ethan nodded, his expression finally softening. "I'm not looking for perfect people. I'm looking for people brave enough to make it right." He turned to the 2 security guards. "Please escort Mr. Travis Monroe off the premises. His computer, his files, everything stays. As of this moment, he is no longer part of Carter Auto and Fleet." Travis thrashed. "You need me. Without me, your numbers will tank." Ethan didn't turn back. His reply was calm, deadly. "I'd rather sell less with integrity than sell more covered in rot." The glass doors slammed shut behind Travis. No one clapped. But the silence, that silence was respect. A fraudulent empire had just been dismantled, and a new foundation, one of truth, had just been laid. The Carter Auto and Fleet showroom no longer resembled a place of commerce. It had become a court of truth, where silence gave way to courage and fear began to lose its grip. Ethan Carter stood in the center of the room, not on a podium, not with a microphone, just a phone in his hand, set to play recordings, his gaze unwavering, his resolve unshakable. "I don't need a team that sells the most trucks," Ethan began, his voice echoing across a silence so dense it felt like standing in a cemetery. "I need people who can look a customer in the eye and not feel ashamed." He scanned the room. Some eyes dropped, but not all. Zach Miller, Rosa from the service department, Malik from finance. The ones who had stepped forward already stood taller. "I want to know how many of you were pressured to add hidden fees, to push unnecessary protection plans, or to follow verbal orders from Travis Monroe you knew were wrong. How many of you spoke up and were punished?" For a moment, silence. Then, one hand went up, then two, then four, then 10. A young woman choked back tears as she spoke. "I once refused to falsify paperwork. The next week, I was scheduled back-to-back night shifts." Another voice followed. "I worked on Luis Ramirez's deal. I know those extra fees weren't there. Travis added them after." Ethan nodded solemnly. "I know. I have the original contract. And now, everything you say today will be recorded, protected, and acted on." He pulled a stack of papers from his folder, honesty affidavits. "For those ready to tell the whole truth, you'll stay. Your job is safe. But for those who choose to protect corruption—" He let the sentence hang in the air. There was no need to finish it. At the reception desk, the front desk associate held up a folder. Over 40 contracts flagged as illegally modified in the past 3 months. Ethan raised it high. "These are the victims. Starting tomorrow, every one of them will be contacted and refunded in full." He looked across the room, and the eyes that once darted away now began to lift, not in fear, but hope. "I know none of you came here to do wrong. You were put into a system where keeping your head down meant keeping your job. But that system is gone." At the back, Luis Ramirez wiped his eyes. Ethan stepped over and handed him a set of keys. "The truck is yours. No added fees, no tricks. And on behalf of this company, I owe you and your daughter a sincere apology." Luis couldn't speak. His gratitude was louder than words. Ethan turned back to the staff, his voice now softer but heavier with meaning. "This is my family, Carter Auto and Fleet, and if you've ever felt abandoned here, I promise you, starting today, we rebuild. I'm not disappearing again. I'll be on this floor every day, no more shadow managers, no more double dealing. And for anyone ready to walk this new path, I'll walk it with you." Applause broke out, not choreographed, not forced, but real. And then, slowly, the whole room stood. Nods, handshakes, deep exhales. A new era for Carter Auto and Fleet had begun, not built on profit, but on honor. Morning sunlight spilled over the Carter Auto and Fleet parking lot, and for the first time in months, it wasn't a place of deceit, but a place of redemption. Luis Ramirez walked in, wearing a worn but freshly ironed shirt, his daughter Sophia's small hand clasped in his. The little girl looked up at the row of gleaming trucks on display. "Daddy, is the new truck really ours?" Luis gently squeezed her hand. "Yes, sweetheart, because someone good made sure we wouldn't be taken advantage of again." Inside, Ethan Carter was already waiting. No ceremony, no re-signing, no small print. "Luis, the truck's officially yours. No protection fees, no price markups, no processing charges. And this," he handed Luis a certified check for the full $3,000 deposit. Luis froze, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say." Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to say anything. Just get your daughter to school on time and live a life where no one gets to take from you ever again." The two men locked eyes. No more words. But in that silence, a pact was made. Of honor, of dignity, and of justice finally served. Just then, the glass doors slammed open. Travis Monroe stormed into the showroom, face red, voice raised, flanked by two security guards. "Carter, you don't get to do this. You can't make me the fall guy. I'll sue, I'll—" "You have nothing but lies," Ethan interrupted, calm as ever. All recordings, unlawful transaction logs, and internal reports were delivered to the Washington Department of Consumer Fraud Investigation at exactly 8 a.m. this morning. Luis instinctively stepped in front of Sophia. The little girl peeked from behind him, clutching his shirt. Ethan turned to Travis, voice quiet but cutting. "Remember Luis? The man you treated like trash in this very showroom? Today, you stand before him, with no power, no prestige, and nothing left but the contempt of everyone you once looked down on." Travis sneered. "I'll sue. You, this whole company—" "No," Ethan cut him off. "You won't be suing. You'll be sued." He held up a court-issued temporary asset freeze order, signed that very morning. Security moved forward. This time Travis didn't fight. He was escorted out, not as a leader, not as a man in control, but as a hollow shell, finally stripped of his arrogance. The doors closed. Silence. Then Sophia, voice soft as a breeze. "Daddy, was that the bad man?" Luis bent down, smiling with tears in his eyes. "Yes, honey, but the good guys won this time." Ethan turned toward them, and to make sure good people will always have someone standing with them, he pulled out a sky blue folder, marked with the Carter Auto and Fleet logo. "This is the creation of the Sophia Future Scholars Fund. Starting this year, we'll offer at least 10 scholarships annually for children of customers who were ever wronged. And it starts with Sophia." Luis stood frozen. Then the tears came, falling onto his daughter's cheeks as she smiled, bright and unafraid. The story of yesterday was truth. The story of today was a promise. And the story of tomorrow would be written in kindness, not deceit. 3 days after the truth came to light, Carter Auto and Fleet, once a fee trap disguised as a dealership, had become a construction site for redemption. A new sign hung above the glass doors: Carter Auto and Fleet, integrity, transparency, trust. Inside, the tension and the hushed tones were gone. In their place, the soft laughter of employees, the hum of printers producing new contracts, itemized, clean, and transparent down to the last line. Ethan Carter didn't retreat to a corner office. He placed his desk right in the center of the showroom, next to the customer consultation tables, where everyone could see him, and he could see everyone. Upstairs, in the second-floor conference room, Ethan stood before the remaining staff. No slides, no papers, just a man standing in the ashes of the dream he once built, now choosing to start over. "I once believed that hiring the right people, empowering them, and trusting the process would keep this company on the right path. But I forgot something important. Trust must be tested. And without oversight, there is no ethics." He looked each person in the room in the eye. "I'm not here to blame. I'm here to rebuild. And I need you. Not just as salespeople, but as the ones who will help restore our honor." He raised a single sheet of paper, the new employee commitment declaration. Every customer would receive a full fee breakdown summary before signing. Every deal would include a dual record, written and a voluntary recorded confirmation. Every complaint would be handled within 48 hours by a newly created ethics office. The first to sign that pledge was Ethan. The second, to everyone's surprise, was Zach Miller, the young sales rep who once froze when asked to lie. "I stood at a crossroads," Zach said quietly, "and I chose to walk with you, Mr. Carter, because I don't want to become another Travis." Silence, then the sound of clapping, and then more and more. In the days that followed, Carter Auto and Fleet entered a chapter like none before. Digital screens displayed all vehicle prices, transaction fees, and upgrade options publicly. A new integrity hotline was launched, allowing customers to report concerns directly. Whistleblowers like Zach were promoted to senior customer advocacy advisors, ensuring no voice would be silenced again. Ethan made over 100 personal phone calls to past customers who had purchased vehicles under Travis's leadership. Each call began with, "This is Ethan Carter. I'm the one who failed to see what I should have seen. But today, I'm making it right. One truck, one person at a time." Exactly 2 weeks after the public unmasking, Carter Auto and Fleet hosted its first ever Customer Appreciation Day. No fancy branding, no big corporate event. Just this, cupcakes, baked and sent by a loyal couple who had once been overcharged. A hand-drawn painting by Sofia Ramirez, now framed and hung in the center of the showroom. A pickup truck driving across the desert with the words, "Every journey can start over, as long as the driver still believes." Carter Auto and Fleet no longer just sold vehicles. They had begun selling something rarer: the restoration of lost trust. 3 months after the explosive exposé, the name Carter Auto and Fleet, once branded as a black mark in the automotive industry, was now making headlines again. But this time with a new title: the most transparent dealership in Washington. On the morning segment of KPNX local news, the anchor leaned forward with intrigue. "Mr. Carter, it's hard to believe. Just a few months ago, people called you the CEO who got duped. Today, you're being hailed as the man who redefined car buying. How does that feel?" Ethan Carter smiled gently. "I didn't reinvent anything. I just did what anyone should do when they discover something wrong. Look it in the eye, fix it, and never let it happen again." The camera panned to the new plaque hanging front and center in the dealership showroom. "Trust earned." Trust isn't given, it's earned. The industry took notice and shook. The State Auto Dealer Association appointed Ethan as an honorary advisor, asking him to share the triple-layer integrity system he had implemented. Dealerships from neighboring states began contacting Carter Auto and Fleet to learn from their model, from real-time contract tracking to anonymous customer feedback protocols. And within the walls of Carter Auto and Fleet, the change was unmistakable. Chris Nguyen, the ethical employee fired by Travis Monroe, was reinstated and promoted to Director of Ethical Sales Training. Zach Miller, once torn between his conscience and his career, now mentored new hires with a simple truth: customers don't need to be manipulated, they just need you to be honest. But the most profound transformation: the return of former customers, not just to buy a second vehicle. They came back because they believed this place was finally worth recommending to their friends and family. Ethan launched a new program called Listening to Every Wheel. Each week, he personally called a random customer post-sale, not to upsell, just to make sure you're happy. And if not, I want to know why. That small act, not flashy ads, not discounts, was the reason Carter Auto and Fleet had the highest customer return rate in the entire Southwest that quarter. Then, one quiet weekend afternoon, Ethan stood outside the glass walls of the showroom, watching. And for the first time in his 15 years as founder, he saw it clearly. Staff smiling, not because they had hit quotas, but because they were proud of how they sold. Customers relaxed, no longer on edge. And in the corner of the lot, Luis Ramirez, teaching an elderly couple how to review their paperwork. Like a goodwill ambassador, entirely on his own. Ethan turned to Chris beside him. "We're coming back, aren't we?" Chris nodded. "We're not coming back, Ethan. We're moving forward, the way we always should have." Carter Auto and Fleet wasn't just back in business. They had become something greater, a car dealership, operating like an ethical promise. Monday morning, in the main hall of Carter Auto and Fleet, a new wooden plaque was mounted to the wall. Etched in golden letters, "Sophia Future Scholars Fund." For the children who never had a chance, but deserve the world. Beneath it, a carefully framed photo. Luis Ramirez in his worn work uniform, hugging his daughter Sophia as she received the very first scholarship from the fund Ethan had founded in her name. The Sophia Fund didn't just help Sophia take her first step toward college. It launched a long-term support program for the children of customers who had once been deceived under the old system. "I can't rewrite the past," Ethan said quietly at the unveiling ceremony, "but I can help them write a better future." After the ceremony, something unusual happened. A group of high school students entered the showroom, not for a test drive, but for the first ever business ethics class, under a new civic education initiative launched by Carter Auto and Fleet in partnership with the city of Phoenix. Inside the classroom set up in the middle of the main floor, Ethan stood at the front, looking over the wide-eyed students. If you could sell a car for more money by lying, and no one would find out, would you do it? Silence. Then a boy slowly raised his hand. "I think just because no one knows doesn't mean it's not wrong." Ethan smiled. "That answer is why we created this class." As for Luis Ramirez, after reclaiming the truck and deposit that nearly broke him, he chose to return, this time as a part-time employee at the dealership. Not for money, but to help others like him avoid the trap that once left him hopeless. He soon earned a new nickname from the staff, the Guardian of Trust. In Ethan's new office, beside a photo of his late father and their old pickup truck, hung a framed motto: "Trust is earned, one honest deal at a time." Every morning, employees walk past it, a living reminder that real success doesn't come from units sold, but from the customers who return, not for discounts, but because they believe. That evening, as Ethan left the building, he paused near the small spotlight in front of the lobby, where a group of neighborhood kids played basketball under the lights now sponsored by the dealership. He looked once more around the lot, the glass walls, and up at the Carter Auto and Fleet sign glowing under the Phoenix night sky. And for the first time in years, he felt he'd truly built something bigger than himself. Not just a dealership, not just a reckoning, but a light in the dark, guiding those who still believe. That decency has a place in business. Sometimes to uncover the truth, you have to step out of your office, take off the suit, and walk into the world of the very people hurt by the system you once trusted. Ethan Carter didn't just expose a conman, he dismantled a toxic culture. With courage, integrity, and an unshakable belief in doing what's right. This isn't just a story about a car dealership, it's about rebuilding trust, one honest deal at a time. And in a world ruled by ambition and gain, perhaps the bravest thing isn't leading a company, but standing with those who were never meant to win.